Hey folks, this is just a short video introducing you with some thoughts that I have about your independent reading assignment in this class, Appleseed by Matt Bell. And I just wanted to share some things that I would like you to have in mind as you start reading and as you get to the two written assignments that are related to this book. You'll be able to see those further down below, some details on this page, and then there will be assignment pages that go into them elsewhere in our course. So the first thing I want to say is that the goal in having you read this book is not to hear you sing its effusive praises. This is a novel that I think does some very interesting things in terms of taking a very creative approach to writing what I would call an eco-futurist novel. As you start reading, you'll discover that there's kind of three different timelines in this book that in various capacities wend their way together. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say too much about what the book is actually about or what occurs in it. But what I will say is Matt Bell makes some very particular stylistic and creative choices in this book that are not necessarily going to be to everybody's taste. This is not a book for everybody. I don't think it's even a perfect book. As a reader and as a writer, there are things that if I was writing the book, I would perhaps do differently. There are things that I think are great strengths from a craft perspective. There are things that I'm not as much of a fan of. But I think that is, in terms of using this as a text that we read and think about instructively, a good thing. You know, I don't think as an instructor, me assigning a book that I think is perfect, where I expect you all to sing its praises, or a book that I think is terrible, that I expect you all to deeply critique, neither one of those would be particularly helpful. That said, as you are reading and then as you are reflecting on and writing in response to the book, my goal is not to hear really whether you like it, why you like it, or not, but is to find out in what ways does this book teach you something. I do think, despite the fact that I do think it is a flawed book, Matt Bell is a very good writer from a crafting perspective. Now, his style may not be to everybody's taste. So I'm just going to mention that right now. He makes some very particular choices about how he constructs the story that some people will like and some people may not like. But what I would like you to have in mind and try to be doing as a reader is to be thinking about how and why he is making the choices he is making. And so the two big things that I want you to have in mind and that you will eventually be asked to reflect on in writing for me is what are the craft choices he makes here that you recognize are smart and or thorough and deliberate. This doesn't mean that they have to be your kind of craft approaches. He has stylistic decisions about lexicon, about syntax, about structure that not every writer is going to use. But things that you can see as thoughtful, thorough constructions that you in some way want to have in mind in your own writing. And then second, he makes some very unique and creative choices from the perspective of telling a story about the ecological and environmental future. His approach to writing ecofuturism, I think, is very unique and creative. And so I'm curious, the second thing I'm curious about is I don't expect anybody to write the same story as him. The goal is not to mimic him directly. But in what ways does how he does this inform and make you think of new ways to think about your own stories? Not necessarily the specific ones that you write in this class, but the idea of telling this kind of story long term. So those are the things that I really want you to think about. You are, of course, in your write-up assignments, welcome to briefly mention what it is you do or don't like about this book. But that should not be the focus. You know, you can spend a sentence or two identifying whether you enjoyed it, are enjoying it, why you did or did not enjoy it. That's fine, but that should not be your ultimate focus. Your ultimate focus is to think like a writer doing reading to understand writing more. Whether I think this book is flawed or not, if you have the similar copy in the back, you're going to see some pretty big names who had a lot of good things to say about this book. Now, writers are often asked to say good things about books in their blurbs, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But writers liked this book. There are lots of people who like this book. And so thinking about why it is from a craft perspective people appreciated what Matt Bell did in this book is one of the other underlying goals that we've got. Okay? So I just want you to have those things in mind as you are reading. Again, I don't expect everyone to love this or to say that it's the best book they've ever written or ever read, but just be thinking about what he accomplishes from a craft perspective that you can take something from, and also thinking about how you might be informed in your own sense of telling these kind of stories based on what you read here. Okay? That's all I got. Thanks for reading.